Sustainability means the act of meeting our own requirements without compromising the facility of future generations to satisfy their own needs. In addition, the resources that there will be needed are not only natural resources, but also social and economic resources. Sustainability is mainly composed of three sections: economic, environmental, and social. These sections are also majorly known informally as the 3 Ps: profits, planet, and people. For Australia, the period from 1939 to 1967 began with an increase of rainfall. 1939, 1941, and 1942 were the first close together groups of relatively wet years since 1921. Extremely hot seasons also emerged during these periods and became frustrating for the masses of farms around the country due to the factors such as droughts and soil erosion. On June 23, 1988, climate change was also declared a national issue for the first time. Without the Australian environmental movement, this date could have been much earlier. The environmental movement in Australia was originally conducted by farmers as a conservation movement to combat the growing problems of soil erosion and soil salinity, which were having a rapidly increasing impact from an estimated year of 1951. After extensive research, the small movement in comparison to today's were increasingly pushed and motivated after realizing the reality of things like fisheries, wildlife management, water, soil, and conservation and forestry dying out to today, the society we are and were living in. The movement officially has its roots in the 1960s. A conservation movement, which is what the movement formally commenced as, is also known as nature conservation, is a political, environmental, and social movement that seeks to manage and protect natural resources including animal fungus, plant species, and their habitats. Conservationists are also concerned with leaving the environment in a better state and the condition that it was found in. Evolving from a conservation movement, the environmental movement in Australia was the first official environmental movement ever, as well as being the first green political party. Australia was essentially home to the world's first Green Party and embraced multiple benefits such as biodiversity. A Green Party is formally organised political party based on the principles of green politics, social justice, environmentalism, and non-violence. As of today in 2021, after the world's first Green Party being launched in Australia, Green Parties exist in nearly 90 other countries around the world. Many are members of the Global Greens, which is an international network of political parties and movements which work to implement the Global Greens Charter. Australia is one of the many members among this network. Thankfully, Australia now spends billions of dollars committed to environmental threats such as deforestation, pollution, and climate change. Since 2015, the Australian governments have used more than $1.5 billion of taxpayer funds towards climate change projects that plant or protect native habitat. Fortunately, Australia has greatly noticed over the past couple of decades that if deforestation continues, biodiversity will quickly become affected. Deforestation and forest fragmentation have an adverse effect on the biodiversity of animals and plants. The loss of biodiversity in Australia is at an all-time high. The introduction of invasive non-native grasses and weed invasion accelerates as the reduction of native plant variety increases. Central Climate Plan is the Emissions Reduction Fund. Once shortened, it becomes what is popularly known as the ERF. The government put forward an additional $2 billion spread over the course of 15 years to help businesses and farmers reduce emissions. bringing up the total investment to $3.5 billion. The government states that it will deliver 100 million tons of emission reductions. Sustainable living involves reducing the amount of Earth's resources that you use in order to protect it. Furthermore, it is also easily possible to replace some resources that we do use. Having a sustainable lifestyle is important because at the moment we are producing and damaging the planet we live in by the following statements. Producing bulk amounts of resources, using energy and creating waste at a rate which is greatly unsustainable. This leads to environmental issues such as pollution, deforestation, and climate change, which cause a great deal of harm to not only the environment, but also wildlife and humans. As formerly stated, by making some simple tweaks to your lifestyle, you can reduce your carbon footprint and help to tackle the current ongoing issues. The following statements are the main ways in which you must follow in order to live a more sustainable lifestyle. The first is to save energy. By using less energy, you can help to reduce carbon emissions. The second is to simply eat less meat. The production of meat is one among the most important contributors to global climate change, and therefore the pollution of landscapes and waterways. Recently, veganism movement has taken off as the food production industries and supermarkets attempt to create more vegan-friendly meat and food in general. The third on the list is to use reusable alternatives to popular needs such as water bottles, straws, and shopping bags. The fourth suggestion is to go somewhat paperless. To avoid using paper as much as possible, choose to receive letters over email or Sector and only print off documents if necessary. The fifth, and arguably most easily to implement into your lifestyle, is to recycle and reuse. Make sure that you are recycling by putting your rubbish in the correct bins. Also, try to reuse your products and items as many times as possible before binning them in order to reduce the amount of waste that you are developing.